WISC-TV now presents For the Record. There's a new addition to the celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. Day in Madison this year, and we will preview it next on For the Record. Thanks for joining us. I'm Neil Heinen. Middleton Cross Plains Area School District Director of Equity and Student Achievement, Percy Brown, is presenting the first Martin Luther King Jr. Forum for Social Action next Saturday, which expands the traditional focus on Dr. King's life. Mr. Brown is also the CEO of Critical Consciousness Education Consulting, and we'll talk about an upcoming Black Excellence Lecture Series as I welcome back to For the Record, Percy Brown. Percy, nice to see you again.
Thank you for having me once again,
Thank you.
Neil.
Thank
It's
you.
always a pleasure to be here with you.
So this is, to me, this feels like the first sort of kind of big addition to the celebration of Dr. King's birthday.
Sure.
I mean, there have been pieces added. It's an entire weekend. It's a really special event. But talk about the forum and what your thinking is there.
You know, for me, it's really about reframing the narrative and the legacy of Dr. King's life. For the past few years, and as a lover of history, the narrative around Dr. King seems to always be situated on 1963 with his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. But if you really research and study the life of Dr. King, towards the end of his life, he had evolved and was really bringing about a different narrative. In 1967, he delivered a powerful speech called The Revolution of Values, where he was basically bringing a charge to the nation to move from a thing-oriented society to a people-oriented society, but also talked about this idea in his mind of the three evils that were continuing to perpetuate and plague the United States of America, which is militarism, racism, and economic exploitation. And if you look where we are today in 2019, a lot of what he was talking about towards the end of his life seems to have come back around full circle when you consider nationally. We've been in the Middle East now almost 17 years, which is comparable to the amount of time that we were in the Vietnam War. We spent over $2 trillion in the Middle East and have lost or have injured over 36,000 soldiers. So when we think about that, how much has really changed? But if we stay stuck on the narrative of King the Dreamer in 1963 and not really reflecting on the totality of his life and activism, that will keep us spinning in a circle without really reflecting in a way to say, how can we continue the legacy of Dr. King's life when he was assassinated in 1968?
You know, I suspect this will be part of the conversation for this year's holiday. And you know, tell me if this is a uninformed white perspective, but it seems to me personally that things have gotten worse in the last 2 years, that we've regressed further in the racial climate in this country in the last couple of years.
It seems as if we are living in a time where people feel that they have the permission to really be blatant and outright overt about how they feel about issues of race, issues of anti-Semitism, or other areas around religion. I've seen it an uptick in the Middleton Cross Plains Area School District with students using racial epithets. We've seen what happened in Baraboo and even with some of the teachers in the Madison Metropolitan School District. And if we continue to not confront and address those issues and really acknowledge the fact that we are living in a time where these issues have resurfaced, we have to move beyond complacency, and we have to figure out now is the time to take a stand. But I think this creates the best opportunity to do it, because the things that Dr. King was talking about in 1967 and 1968 are things that we need to continue to talk about now. But if we stay stuck in 1963 and King the Dreamer, we will still be living in this illusion of, well, everything is fine and it's just a few people that are in the alt-right, or it's just a handful of people, you know, that are making these comments. But if you just look nationally, even with the killings of unarmed black men by local law enforcement, those are issues of concern. And it's not to say that local law enforcement is bad. I have good friends that are police officers, but there's still this dynamic where there are things that are happening that we really need to confront and address.
Yeah. The focus of Dr. King's work very much during the years that you're referencing had to do with education.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was one of his major contributions to,
Yes.
to the world at the time. So talk about your decision to make that the focus of the forum.
Okay. Well, 2019, if a lot of folks don't know, is the 400th year anniversary of when the first enslaved ship of Africans arrived in Jamestown, Virginia, 1619.
I did not know that.
Yes. And 2019 is also the 65th year anniversary of the famous Brown versus Board of Education decision. So for me as a Black American, looking at those two monumental years, 400 years since the first ship of enslaved Africans arrived, and then 65 years post-Brown, and looking at the national climate, and even here locally, for me, I said, you know, instead of waiting for the conversation to start, let me be proactive, take initiative, and bring the conversation to the community.
This is taking place on Saturday, January 19th, as I mentioned. It is at Middleton High School.
In the Performing Arts Center.
In the Performing Arts Center at
Yes.
Middleton High School, open to the public.
It's free of charge. Anyone who's willing to come, learn, and be ready to activate, because it's more than just having conversations, right? There has to be a coming together of the community that's willing not only to learn, but then to engage in activism to transform our community.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the special guests who will be at that forum,
Okay.
and continue our conversation with Percy Brown right after
Right.
this.
For the Record, sponsored by MG&E, your community energy company.
It's Empire Today's biggest sale, the 50-50-50 sale. 50% off carpet and flooring, 50% off padding and materials, and 50% off installation. That's right, half off your entire project. You can save thousands. Empire's 50-50-50 sale won't last long. Don't miss 50% off carpet and flooring, 50% off padding and materials, and 50% off installation.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today. Choose the road less traveled in your new Jeep from Don Miller. Jeep days are here with rebates, bonuses, cash back, your Don Miller deal. It all means this is the time for you to find the Jeep you've been dreaming of. The new Wrangler, Cherokee, Renegade, the 2018 Jeep Compass Sport, stock number 187620, with Sport Appearance Plus Group for only $19,999 after rebate, select inventory bonus, and your Don Miller deal. Jeep days on now at Don Miller, Madison and Dane County's Jeep headquarters.
Congratulations to Kelly Seidel, a top-notch art teacher at Prairie View Elementary in Oregon.
I really want them to kind of have that creative outlet so that they can look at the world in a different lens. I just want them to come in here and just chill and get into the moment and really create their best work.
If you know a teacher who deserves to be recognized as a top-notch teacher, send us a letter, an email, or nominate a teacher at channel3000.com.
Sponsored by Lazy Boy Furniture Galleries and by Concordia University.
I'm back with Percy Brown, who is the Director of Equity and Student Achievement for the Middleton Cross Plains Area School District, and is also the CEO of Critical Consciousness, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But we start by talking about the Forum for Social Action, Revolution of Values, being presented Saturday, January 19th at the Performing Arts Center at Middleton High School, with a background of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s education work, and his emphasis on education is so important. And the special guests, of course, are certainly relevant to that. Dr. Billings, Dr. Lassen Billings, one of the most respected educators in the country.
Oh, Education Week just published their top 200 educational scholars, and Dr. Billings was ranked 4th.
Yep.
out of 200. She's an amazing woman.
Yeah, we're lucky to have her.
She's an extended mother. We belong to Mount Zion Baptist Church, so our families have been closely tied for quite some time now, and it's just an honor for her to be able to be in that space with us next Saturday.
And Tamara Stanley?
Oh yes, she is a phenomenal singer. Yeah. So her alongside the Mount Zion Baptist Church praise team will be in that space and bringing some of the black church into this space. You know, that's what's so great about this opportunity, was that it really came together with a coalition of black folks. So it wasn't just myself as the CEO of Critical Consciousness LLC. Henry Sanders Jr. with Madison 365 is the media sponsor, and the person who developed the flyers, Greg Doby, who was actually the son of Tamara Stanley's wife, Yolta Stanley, developed the flyers.
And a great musician in his own right.
And a great musician in his own right, and he'll be there playing the piano. So it will be a blend of great music. Dom Ricks, who's an African-American male and one of the dean of students at Glacier Creek Middle School, was a part of the First Wave program at UW-Madison and was a performer for TED Talks. So he will be delivering spoken word at the event that night. And we also have GK for Life, which you might not be able to see on the flyer, but that's our dance team in the Middleton Cross Plains Area School District. So it's GK for Life stands for Glacier and Cromery. So it's a combining of our two middle schools where the girls will also be performing that night.
So it's a mix of arts and music and dialogue.
Absolutely, and it will be a great opportunity for immersion to really experience and hear from black educators, my Uncle Charles Brown. Who,
well, I was going to get to that. The last name on the flyer is a familiar one. Talk about Charles Brown.
So Charles Brown is my uncle. He's from the Mississippi Delta, and a lot of people don't know, but my Brown side of the family was heavily involved in the civil rights movement. My grandfather, Morgan Brown Sr., was an educator for over 35 years, and my Uncle Charles, my dad, Percy Brown Sr., and all of their siblings were heavily involved in the movement when they were children. Ella Brown, who was my aunt, was the first African-American to integrate the all-white high school in Rosedale, Mississippi, alongside one other African-American woman, and then my father followed the following year. And those stories about what it was like being jailed in a maximum security prison, my father waking up at 12 years old to see the KKK burning a cross in front of our home, which meant that typically 24 hours later their home would be bombed. It's a story that is here in Madison, Wisconsin. So for my Uncle Charles to be able to bring that story to the community is powerful. And I was just talking to him a few days ago, and I never really had given this much consideration, but as I was talking to him, you know, he was just really saying, you know, Percy, it's difficult to do these speeches, you know, not only preparing the message, but when you do that, you are reliving those experiences, and he's still traumatized to this day from the impact of Jim Crow and going into an all-white setting where he was not allowed to be on the basketball team, or if they had pep assemblies, he literally would be the only one in the row because all of the white kids would move away from him, or in the cafeteria having to sit by himself, and even hearing, you know, the overt racial epithets that kids would use towards him. Another example, my dad's junior year in the all-white high school, the day after Dr. King was assassinated, on the blackboard it said, "I'm glad that N-word is dead." And the teacher let it sit up there for a few hours without addressing it. And this is civil rights history that's a primary source. And at some point in time, we will no longer have those civil rights activists because it was bigger than King. It was bigger than Montgomery. It was bigger than Selma. There was a national agenda with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, but it was up to the people within their respective communities to take that national agenda and activate it in their respective communities. And my family was part of that. But here's a side note that a lot of people don't know. My dad is older than my uncle, and the reason why they found their way to UW-Madison is because white college students from UW-Madison were trained as freedom riders, rolled into Rosedale, Mississippi, and stayed with my family to help out with health care programs and voter registration. And it was because of those authentic relationships and those white folks putting their lives on the line that my uncle and my father were like, you know, maybe we need to migrate to Madison, Wisconsin, if the University of Wisconsin-Madison would accept us. So here we are today in 2019, seeing some of the racial inequities in Dane County, and for me, it's not about our white community having to put their lives on the line today, right? It's really more about taking a stand and not making excuses for the inequities that we see and saying now it's time for us to do something fundamentally different to transform our community in a way that it can become the beloved community that Dr. King once talked about.
And isn't it the failure to do that, Percy, that we're seeing in these incidents of hatred that are showing up in our schools disproportionately, but in the broader society as well?
Absolutely, and for me, our public schools are a microcosm of broader society. You know, it's unfortunate what happened in Baraboo. There are ongoing issues of kids posting racial epithets or anti-Semitic epithets in the Middleton Cross Plains Area School District, but it's not restricted to Middleton or Baraboo. It's happening across Dane County. With my business Critical Consciousness, I was just meeting with a good number of students from the Oregon School District yesterday to prepare for some professional development for the high school staff. And some of the stories that they were sharing with me are no different than what I've been seeing in Middleton or what we've seen in Baraboo. And in a lot of ways, the stories that they are sharing are no different than what my family was experiencing in Rosedale, Mississippi when they were in the all-white high school. So we have some work to do.
I want to talk more about that work and the work of critical consciousness and the Black Excellence Lecture Series, and we'll do that when we come back with Percy Brown Jr. right after this.
No one sells more. Wild Automotive sells more SUVs and all-wheel drives combined than any other dealer. Wild is the #1 volume SUV and all-wheel drive retailer in Southeast Wisconsin. The more we sell, the more you save. WildAuto.com.
This is no place for the timid. Out here, one wrong move can mean the end. But whenever challenges try to pin you down, you bite back. With T-Rex Brute Force, the unmatched strength of a single loop of tape holds more than 700 pounds. So when you're faced with even the most ferocious challenges, bite hard with the absolute strongest duct tape. T-Rex Brute Force.
Get the best prices on quality furniture during Steinhoffel's 3-day sale this weekend only. Save 30 to 70% store-wide, plus an extra 10% off with no minimum purchase, plus special financing for 36 months. Steinhoffel's has the largest selection of quality furniture and mattresses for every budget. That's 30% off, plus 10%, plus special financing. But hurry, this sale is so amazing, it has to end Sunday. Only at Steinhoffel's.
Dirt's gonna fly in the Alliance Energy Center. The Monster Truck Nationals, January 25th and 26th at 7:30, and the 27th at 1 p.m. Let's get dirty, Madison. All new dirt course for the monsters, including 2018 winner War Wizard, plus insane action of freestyle motocross. Get free pit passes at Weaver Auto Parts for the pit party with racers, and go for a ride in a monster truck. Get tickets now. Details at monsternationals.com. Mountain Dew welcomes you to the Monster Truck Nationals, January 25th through the 27th.
No one sells more. Wild Automotive sells more SUVs and all-wheel drives combined than any other dealer. Wild is the #1 volume SUV and all-wheel drive retailer in Southeast Wisconsin. The more we sell, the more you save. WildAuto.com.
I'm back with Percy Brown, the Middleton Cross Plains Area School District Director of Equity and Student Achievement, and also the CEO of Critical Consciousness. We were talking about the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday coming up, and the Forum for Social Action, which is on Saturday, January 19th. But as we talk about the work of Critical Consciousness, the lecture series, which starts Tuesday, February 5th. Four lectures at Cromery Middle School. Talk about who that is for and give a little bit of the background for that.
It's really for anyone who is willing to engage in Black history during Black History Month. And unfortunately, in most public educational settings, the history that is taught about Black people is restricted to slavery and the civil rights movement, or Dr. King or Malcolm X. There is Black history that has existed for thousands of years prior to our 400 years of dealing with oppression in the Western Hemisphere. And for me, as a history lover, a lover of history and majoring in history, my primary focus has really been to dig into Black history globally. And if we really want to change the narrative, I think it's really about not talking about the things that Black people have had to encounter in terms of racial oppression in the United States for over 400 years, but really highlighting the excellence, the resilience, the resistance that we have been able to use to overcome these barriers that have been inflicted on us for 400 years, but to also acknowledge the thousands of years of rich history in Africa that for some reason has been, I would say, whitewashed or has had a narrative change in a way where when we see Africa on the news, or if we see Africa in the textbooks, it really portrays a primitive continent. But there is nothing primitive about Africa. Civilization was birthed in Africa, and a lot of those kingdoms and civilizations that existed prior to the Roman Empire and even the rise of Europe were Black people. But that's things that not only our Black community knows, but even our white folks. So it really was me really saying, let me continue the conversation beyond the MLK Forum for Social Action to really do whatever I can as an educator and having the knowledge that I have to help bring about awareness. Because critical consciousness, if you don't know, was taken from Paulo Freire's book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And critical consciousness really means being able to perceive inequities in any systems, and with that perception and awareness, then taking action against it. Right. And for me, in order to have that title live true, I have to lead by example as the CEO of Critical Consciousness Educational Consulting.
And if there is an antidote to the incidents of hatred that we see so often, should we not be encouraged by the first African-American lieutenant governor, by candidates for mayor and school board, and the number of African-Americans in our state and in our communities that are being accepted, encouraged as leaders?
Those are things that we have to continue to build on. But sometimes when that happens, when we have the first Black president or the first lieutenant governor, you know, there's this sense of, okay, we're making progress. But it's really about the transformation of using those firsts to say, now we have to lift others up that look like them so that they can be afforded the same opportunities to aspire and dream and reach those same types of goals, right? Because when we look at our data in public schools across Dane County and across the nation, Black students are still underperforming compared to other groups. And for me, education is that one institution that can truly level the playing field. But for our students of color, primarily Black students, if they don't ever see Black excellence throughout history, and not just in politics or in sports and in entertainment, but in medicine, science, and math, it will be difficult for them to self-actualize and actually aspire into becoming a lawyer, a doctor, a principal. So while we see those, we have to highlight and raise that up. But at the same time, we have to remember that we have to make sure that our kids are being exposed to information that can help them become motivated and be inspired despite the barriers that are put in front of them. And also to know your history also gives you the best weapon and tool to combat any level of racism, whether it's implicit or explicit commentary, right? That's the appropriate way to push back and not with your fists.
So I'm just curious, Percy, what are the obvious then next steps for critical consciousness in your work after this lecture series?
So we've actually been doing work with the Oregon School District. We've been doing some work with the Monona Grove School District. I don't work alone. Rainey Briggs, who's a colleague of mine in the Middleton Cross Plains Area School District. We've been doing professional development for teachers, but we've also been incorporating the student voice as part of that experience. And even with the MLK event, it is being sponsored by several school districts. So not only Middleton, the Madison School District, Oregon, Monona Grove, DeForest, Mount Horeb, Edgewood College. So there are people within our educational systems around this county that are really trying to do things differently. And here's one thing that really hasn't been put out in the media yet. We have 18 school districts in Dane County that have come together, and we've established a Dane County Equity Consortium. Because I think for me, in order to really address inequities, it really takes authentic and true collaboration. And I'm just so happy to see that we've got so many districts that are willing to come together to address those issues.
And I know there's a student empowerment element to this too as well. Percy, congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this.
Are you pouring money down the drain?
Well, I just got my wireless bill.
You can switch for free to U.S. Cellular.
Really?
And get a free phone when you switch.
Free phone? Oh.
Plus get paid back for data you don't use with the Unlimited with Payback plan.
No way. All that money wasted. I had the wrong provider.
Right now at U.S. Cellular, there's no trade-in required to get a free Samsung Galaxy S9. Just switch to U.S. Cellular.
Hello, folks. I'm Rosalie Michaels, and I'm here with former Dallas Cowboys quarterback Danny White, and we're talking about home safety. Thanks so much for coming in, Danny.
Thanks for inviting me.
I heard that you've been working to come up with an offer to help people protect their homes. Is that right?
That's right. Our mission is to ensure that everyone receives the protection that they need. So we're offering a brand new home security system, $850 value, free of charge.
And it's kind of hard to beat free. So tell us about monitoring.
Well, you get 24/7 monitoring for burglar, fire, and medical emergencies from ADT, the #1 home security company in America, and monitoring is about $1 a day. There's no better investment you can make for the things that matter most. The first 20 callers to order will receive a $100 Visa gift card plus 2 wireless keychain remotes free of charge. So call now and we'll help you protect your home.
To get this special offer, call 855-549-1430. That's 855-549-1430.
Welcome to Mitsubishi. Interested in a test drive?
Introducing the 2019 Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross. If you like sculpted lines, you'll love its dynamic design. With a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty, the Eclipse Cross is a must-see. Now showing at a dealership near you.
That was crazy. What?
Only at Mad City can you get a 30-year, 300,000-mile warranty, and we're getting approvals with just $5 down, or get $4,016 minimum trade value. It's our Snow Blows event.
Drive your ambition. Mitsubishi Motors.
My thanks to Percy Brown Jr. and to you for joining us. We'll see you next week on For the Record.